Hey,
Hi,
how's it going?
I'm really hating daylight savings time.
I know.
It's already dark and it shouldn't be dark. I don't
I
like it.
know. Yep, same. Same. At least my sense of time is better than it was last time. Um, but yeah, I had a call scheduled on Monday night, and the other person had just hadn't made the mental shift. And it became very awkward. I felt so bad for her. Um, All right. Well, welcome to Goodnight, Mr. Holmes, a podcast about the Granada Sherlock Holmes, which ran on ITV in the UK between 1984 and 1994 and ran on Masterpiece Mystery in the US around the same time. I'm Laura,
And I'm Rachel.
and today we are looking at episode 29 in the series, The Boscombe Valley Mystery.
The story was first published in The Strand in 1891.
And it appeared exactly 100 years later on TV. Yeah, it was, this episode was broadcast in 1991.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we're in a lush kind of glen. It's a forest, but there are also so many ferns, all the ferns.
And there are flowers too in the
Yeah.
background. It was
And
very
it's gorgeous, and it's as green as can be. A little girl with long brown hair is happily skipping through them, holding a doll. Her mood is ruined, however, when she comes upon a father and a son arguing in a clearing. She drops her doll and runs away crying.
the mystery of the Boscombe Valley is, where did I leave my doll?
Exactly. Under what fern? So I think it's nearby. Watson is fishing in a stream as a man wishes him good morning from the top of a bridge, and Watson looks up. He's surprised to see Holmes. He hadn't expected Holmes to show up while he was on his fishing expedition. Holmes comes down and joins Watson by the stream. "What on earth are you doing here?" Watson asks. And Holmes laughs. "A case has brought me this way," he says, and he flings his cane out like a fishing rod over the stream. He's wearing his deerstalker and his matching Ulster coat, which he wears pretty much throughout the whole episode, which led me to wonder if Jeremy Brett had done something to his hair again. What sort of case? Watson wants to know. "The newspapers are calling it the Boscombe Valley Mystery. I expect you've read something of it." "Not a word. I haven't seen a paper in 5 days," Watson says. "A farmer called McCarthy, Australian by birth, met his death by a mere at the bottom of this farm. They seem to have established a very serious case against the son of the murdered man."
A
So,
mere is a shallow lake or freshwater pond.
yep. And why Holmes can't say that is beyond me.
I guess everybody in 1891 knew what the word mere meant.
Okay. It's a large puddle.
Yes.
Watson's attention is diverted by a big fish hiding under a rock in the stream. "So then it's a murder," he says, absentmindedly, kind of letting his fishing line out a little bit.
Yeah, he's not even really trying to fish.
No. "There's conjecture to be solved," Holmes says. "Of course, I should take nothing for granted until I've had a chance to look into it personally." And Watson says, "Naturally." "I don't wish to spoil your holiday, but I was wondering if I could persuade you to join me for a couple of days." Holmes's tone here is conciliatory. It's almost pleading. And Watson shoots him a look and then smiles. "Well, of course." "Are you sure?" Holmes asks. And Holmes's whole attitude,
roommates for like 40 years by now.
right. But Holmes's whole attitude here made me wonder if they had a fight before Watson left for his fishing.
Could have been like the end of that Richard Roxburgh Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes. Yep. "I should be delighted," Watson says. "Then we must move quickly. Our local train leaves in 35 minutes. Holmes turns away and walks off. And Watson just gives him this look of utter disbelief and exasperation. From the railway, they take a carriage with a lot of luggage stacked up on top to the Boscombe Arms Hotel. They're sitting out in the garden, and a maid's bringing them tea. And Holmes,
this lovely courtyard, and the hotel looks beautiful, and I really want to stay there.
I have a note on that. And Holmes is saying, Watson, all this fresh air will kill me.
Yeah, that's me trying to explain to my mother why I don't go outside.
Right. So yes, as you mentioned, this place is gorgeous. The hotel is an old black and white timber framed building. In reality, it's Galsworth Old Hall in Cheshire. We're back in Cheshire again because they're cheap. It was built supposedly between 1480 and 1600.
Wow.
So it's ancient. It has its own history, including a duel, the Hamilton-Mohun duel in 1712. Not Alexander Hamilton, the Duke of Hamilton, which was fought in Hyde Park in London over the ownership of the estate.
Wow.
Yeah. And both the fourth Duke of Hamilton and the fourth Baron Mohun died of their injuries. So it was a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah. Dueling is kind of a stupid way to settle things.
Exactly. But the garden is amazing. There's lots of
It's so
larkspur.
beautiful. Like if this were a hotel, you'd be like, I want to stay at this fictional hotel that they're staying at.
Yes. Roses, incredible pinks and blues and purples, and, carefully manicured shrubs, topiaries, not scary ones.
Yes.
Watson is, as usual, reading the newspaper. Well, the London press don't seem much interested, not very full accounts. And Holmes snatches the papers out of Watson's hands, tosses them aside, a lot like he does.
Yes, as Holmes is wont to do.
Yes, he says, useless. It all seems so depressingly simple. What persuaded you to take an interest in this case? Watson asks. And Holmes holds out a telegram. Watson takes it and begins to read. Boscombe Valley mystery. There has been a grave miscarriage of justice. The matter is urgent. We need your help. Please come if you can. Alice Turner. Who is Alice Turner? She is the daughter of Mr. Turner, also Australian, who owns this whole estate. Well, it's a mystery, not murder, to Miss Turner, Watson says. Look at the we. We need your help. If ever there was a cry from the heart, that is it. It leaps from the paper. Have you seen this lady?
And she could also be saying me and my dad.
Right, I know. Yeah. Holmes has never met a conclusion he didn't like to jump to.
He's on that Matt from Office Space.
Yes. Have you seen this lady? No, not yet, Holmes says. Do you remember a certain Sergeant Summerby? The case of the counterfeit Spanish dollar, Mexican, Holmes corrects.
And his eye roll when he says Mexican. Yes. And the side eye he gives to Watson, like, oh, they're all alike to you, Watson, aren't they?
Well, it's all colonial. A pleasant fellow, much admired your methods, did he not? Probably the reason for his promotion to inspector. He is in charge of the case. It was he who organized this accommodation for us. Us? You presumed I would come? No, not presumed, Watson. Hoped, very much hoped.
Sorry about that whole not trusting you.
Yes. Just then, the inspector comes out of the hotel and walks over to them. He shakes their hands, and Watson congratulates him on his promotion. He tells them he's got a carriage waiting, and they're off. In the carriage, Summerby tells them that, he says, McCarthy, the murdered man, rented a farm called Haverley from Mr. Turner. He was one of the largest land proprietors in the area, made his money in Australia. I presume that both being colonials, they had much in common, Watson says.
Australia is, such a small place. I'm sure they knew each other.
No. Old friends. Mr. Turner has been failing in health for some time. He has a daughter called Alice, Holmes asks. An only child, and a most charming one, Summerby says. We surmised that Miss Turner and the McCarthy boy are friends, Watson says. Great friends, Summerby says. It is Miss Turner who brings me here, Holmes says. Oh, I know, Mr. Holmes, and to be quite honest with you, I'm surprised you came. The case is as plain as a pikestaff. The more that goes into it, the plainer it becomes. And I had to look up plain as a pikestaff, and I still don't really understand. But whatever. So I had to warn Miss Turner that this time not even Sherlock Holmes would be able to work miracles, Summerby says. Watson remarks on the beauty of the landscape, and Summerby points out the mere where the murder took place. Any witnesses? Holmes asks. The principal witness is William Crowder, one of Mr. Turner's gamekeepers, Summerby says. So they arrive at the estate, and the men are walking by a pheasant coop as Crowder is telling them, "It was after I'd had me dinner last Monday. It was the 3rd of June. Now,
But like he's beginning an epic story.
yes, now I fed the young pheasants, poults, we call them." And Summerby kind of rushes him along. "You were out planting lettuces," he says. "That's right. I was setting out some lettuces," Crowder says. "Those lettuces over there." When my little girl Patience come running up. So the little girl in the woods is Patience Crowder, and we see her running up to her father in a flashback. There are lots of flashbacks in this one. Dad, the McCarthys are fighting," she says.
He says it like, and I'm going to put a $5 down on the sun.
Right. It won't be the first time. And Crowder gets up and he picks up Patience. "Well, don't you worry about it, Patience. 'Tain't no concern of ours," he says, and he kisses her and sends her inside the house and resumes his planting. In the present, Crowder is pouring out tea for the men as they sit by the pheasant coop. "Mr. McCarthy, he had a temper, that one," Crowder says. "If he thought another gun had poached his bird out shooting, he'd like fly in a real fury." "Was the boy the same way inclined?" Holmes asks. "No, not that I noticed anyway. He always seemed a nice enough boy. Surprised him doing such a thing, but then again, he was provoked, no doubt. Who's to say?" "Tell the gentleman what happened next," Summerby says.
In other words, get on with it, please.
"Yes." "What?" Crowder looks puzzled. "You haven't forgotten what you said in evidence at the inquest." "Forgotten?" Crowder looks horrified. "I shan't forget that day, not so long as I live." And we flash back again. "I had just sent Patience into her mother, and I hadn't planted no more than another half box when young McCarthy come running up looking like he'd seen a ghost." James McCarthy is played by none other than baby James Purefoy.
He is so young.
He was. I loved him so much as Mark Antony in Rome,
Yeah.
which is the best series. Everybody needs to watch it.
I liked the first season. I think the second season it started to go off the rails.
It not so much off the rails, but what happened was it got canceled, and they had to wrap it up quickly. They were going to go for a 3rd season, so the storytelling kind of got whacked out by that. But it was too expensive, given the viewership that it had at the time. I think this was like 2006.
Yeah.
But they took all of those artisans who, the people who, the armorers and the seamstresses and embroiderers and all of that.
With them to Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. So they got work again, which was great.
Nice.
So yes, there's a couple HBO crossovers in this episode. These days, Purefoy is also in The Witcher.
Oh.
Yeah. And he plays Baron David Freeman Mitford, also known as Farv, in Outrageous, which is a series about the Mitford sisters, which is a little glib, but so are the Mitfords.
Well, yeah.
So in that way, it's kind of perfect. "My father's met with a terrible accident. Please come with me. I need your help," he gasps to Crowder. "Where is he?" Crowder asks, getting up from his lettuces again. "Down by the mere," James says, and they go tearing off so quickly that James slips and falls in the underbrush. William McCarthy is lying face down by the mere next to a rifle with a trickle of blood coming from his ear. As Crowder's trying to figure out what's going on, James asks, "Is he alive?" And Crowder shakes his head and covers William, at least his head and shoulders, with his jacket. James bursts into tears as Crowder checks the rifle. The 2 bullets are still in the chamber, unshot. As James is sobbing, we see blood on his hands, so he must have been fingering his dad.
Don't phrase that.
Not like that. Crowder looks around and then pulls James up to his feet and brings him back to Crowder's house. "And then I sent me wife down in the trap for the police," he tells Holmes and Watson. "Did the boy say anything?" Holmes asks. "No, not a word," Crowder says. "He just sat there where you are, sobbing and moaning, and I didn't take my eyes off him till they came for him, and that's the truth." "Did you examine the gun at all?" Holmes asked. "The butt, for instance." No, not especially," Crowder says. "There was a bit of mud on it." "He wiped it," Summerby tells Holmes. "He wiped it," Holmes repeats, and he looks up at the sky in disbelief at Crowder's stupidity. Well, I might have done, Crowder says. It would have been natural, wouldn't it? There was Mr. McCarthy lying there with his head bashed in. He hadn't got that way swatting wasps, had he? And you believe that the boy killed his father, Watson says. Of course I do, sir. I mean, who else could have done it? I can tell you this much, gentlemen. I'm a gamekeeper, all right, and when a man's got a gun in his hands, strange things can happen. Oh, aye. Now, I've seen men, quiet, law-abiding gentlemen. You put a gun in their hands, they turn into maniacs. That is true.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Crowder, Holmes says, for giving so much of your valuable time. Holmes stands up and he begins to lead the men away. Well, it's been a pleasure, gentlemen. It's not the first time I've been able to help the cause of justice.
Witness crimes is my hobby.
Yes, he's following along behind them and talking about how he helped the police 2 years ago at Candlemas time, meaning early February. The inspector cuts him off and Crowder reluctantly walks back to his pheasant coop. They're all the same, these country people, Summerby tells Holmes and Watson. Once they get an audience, they'll talk the hind leg off a donkey. Now, I'll take you to the scene of the crime. No need for the moment, Holmes says. That's very true, Summerby says. No need in the circumstances. It's a sad case, but a pretty clear one. Holmes is looking up at the sky. The glass is high. The weather set fair. And I had to look this up, and it took a while. He's talking about an old-fashioned barometer.
Oh.
And it's setting for good weather. I don't know if that's a metaphor or if he's being literal.
Probably both.
Yeah. But if you look up old-fashioned barometers, they're like kind of like coffee pots with a spout, and you put water in them, and if the water in the spout rises above the level in the pot, then it's going to be a good day, and if not, if it goes low, then it's going to be a bad day.
Okay.
They say. I should like to call on James McCarthy. I can arrange it if you wish, Summerby says, puzzled by Holmes's words. Tomorrow, Holmes says. One more thing I should tell you, Mr. Holmes. When the boy was charged with the murder, he didn't appear in the least surprised. In fact, he said it was no more than his deserts. Those were her very words. A confession, Watson says. I think so. Did he also protest his innocence, Holmes asks. Yes, but then again, they always do, don't they? So Holmes, yeah, sorry.
It doesn't, I feel like he's contradicting himself.
Oh, yes. Yes, but, you know, he's supposed to be sort of a country bumpkin inspector.
He confessed. Did he say he was innocent? Yes, he also said he was innocent. That means he's guilty.
Yeah. Holmes and Watson head back to the hotel, while Summerby heads to the estate to make some calls. Well, the boy said he got no more than his deserts. That's a pretty suspicious remark, Watson says. I mean, coming after such a damning series of events. On the contrary, it is the brightest rift I can see in the clouds at present, Holmes says. The self-reproach and contrition displayed by his remark appear to be signs of a healthy mind rather than a guilty one. Many men have been hanged on far slighter evidence, Watson says. So they have, Holmes says, and many men have been hanged wrongfully.
Yeah, I had to note that that's horrifying.
Yes. But then Holmes goes, oh, look, a pheasant. And Watson looks around and like, I was not clear if Holmes was kidding him or...
Yeah, like there's no follow-up or anything.
No,
it's just like, oh, look, a squirrel.
Right, exactly. Yes. So they're back in the hotel library. They spend a lot of time in this room. Watson is reading the transcript of the trial from the newspaper. Witness, that's James McCarthy. I had a conversation with my father which led to high words and almost to blows. So another flashback to the trial itself, the coroner's inquest.
Yeah, the courtroom literally looks like a movie set.
Yeah. James is standing in front of the coroner. Police are sitting on all sides of him. There's a smattering of villagers in the room, which is another one of these timber and plaster sets with a bunch of open windows near the ceiling, which
except it looks fragile.
Hodgepodge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like a bunch of flats on a soundstage.
Yes, and if you pull one piece of wood out, the whole thing will collapse.
Yeah.
Jenga.
And the floor is just the floor of the soundstage.
Yes. I left him and went up the hill. I hadn't gone more than 100 yards when I heard a hideous outcry, which caused me to run back again. I found my father expiring on the ground with his head terribly injured. Did you see anyone near your father when you returned? The coroner asks. No, no one. I have no idea how he came by his injuries. He was not a popular man, but as far as I know, he had no active enemies. I know nothing further of the matter, James says. Did your father say anything to you before he died? He mumbled a few words, but all I could catch was some allusion to a rat. Allusion, sorry.
A giant rat, maybe?
Of Sumatra, perhaps. There's some kind of outburst from one of the villagers, and the coroner snaps, "Silence! Be quiet!" And he turns back to James. A rat. What did you understand by that? It conveyed nothing to me, James thought. I thought he was delirious. What was the point upon
I thought he was like, let me just say something cryptic instead of the name of the person who killed me.
Exactly. What was the point upon which you and your father had this final quarrel? The coroner asks. James looks down at the floor and finally says, I should prefer not to answer, sir.
Oh, is she married?
I'm afraid I must press it, the coroner says. It really is impossible for me to tell you, James says, but I can assure you it had nothing to do with the sad tragedy that followed. In fact, it had everything to do. That is for the court to decide, the coroner says, but I need hardly point out to you that your refusal to answer will prejudice your case considerably in any future proceedings which may arise. He tells James to sit down, and he turns to the inquest jury and gives them instructions. Gentlemen of the jury, because there are no women, you are here to discover the cause of death of Mr. William McCarthy and to deliver your verdict. You have heard the facts of this crime. I believe they make the situation very clear. Mr. James McCarthy's account of his father's dying is singular, to say the least. His refusal to give any details of their last conversation must go against him. The verdict of willful murder seems to me to fit the facts we have heard. I hope I make myself clear.
Why do you even have a jury? Also, the camera is panning across the jurors, and
yes.
That one juror clearly has a fake mustache. I think he's hiding his identity from There's probably a wanted poster of him without the
He's done something somewhere else. There's a young woman in the audience among the villagers that the camera's been panning to occasionally, and she looks stricken by the news.
She also looks like she's from the 1970s.
Yes. And this was filmed in the 90s, but it has a very 70s vibe.
Yeah, it does.
So, willful murder it was, Watson says. Monstrous. Holmes looks up at the ceiling in dismay. Well, the boy did rather ask for it, Watson points out. Don't you see, you and the coroner have been at some pains to single out the strongest points in the young man's favor? Holmes asks. Don't you see, you unintentionally give credit for too much imagination or too little? Too little if he could not invent a quarrel to get the sympathy of the jury. Too much if he evolved from his own inner consciousness anything so outre as a dying reference to a rat. These county coroners do think they're little tin pot gods, Watson says. And that's not snobbery from Watson, is it?
I'm a big city coroner.
Yes. It's an absolute scandal, Holmes says. No. I shall approach this case from the point of view that what this young man says is true. In the next scene, the young woman from the inquest pulling up to the Boscombe Arms in a little carriage that she's driving herself. Holmes catches sight of her and runs back to the library. We have a visitor. Our young client has arrived. Alice Turner enters the room and they make their introductions. Dr. Watson, of course, you have written down Mr. Holmes's cases in such an interesting way. You see, I know all about you, Mr. Holmes, and your wonderful success. If you knew how much we need you now, but do you yet know of anything of what has happened?
Yeah, and she's doing that kind of baby voice that women will do when they're catering to men with certain ideas about women. Really annoying.
But she comes by it naturally because...
Really?
Well, I will say, later we find out men will do anything but ask a woman a question. Like, people aren't really taking her desires into account at all, so she's got to wangle through.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Please sit down, Miss Turner, Holmes instructs, and she smiles and takes a seat. She's cute.
Yes.
Miss Inspector Summerby has told me something of it, Holmes says. Oh, yes, the inspector. He gave me your address. He's quite a kind man, isn't he? But he doesn't understand. How could he? He's a policeman. Mr. Holmes, I know that James didn't do it. I know it, and I want you to start your work knowing it too. She's kind of quiet, but she's extremely intense.
Yes.
She's got long brown hair, huge brown eyes, and she's leaning forward.
Yeah, it's a very little girl talking to her daddy.
Yes, yes. Never let yourself doubt upon that point, she says. Have you known James McCarthy for a long time? Watson asks. Yes, all my life. We have known each other since we were children, but he's too tenderhearted to hurt a fly. This charge is just absurd to anyone who really knows him.
He's too tenderhearted to hurt a fly. That's why he was comfortable carrying a gun. Okay.
Yeah. Shooting rabbits, as we find out later. Well, then I hope...
Fly, but rabbits.
Rabbits are food. Well, then I hope that we may clear him, Holmes says. I shall do all I can. But from what you've heard already, do you not think he's innocent? I think it is probable, Holmes says, though I don't think my friend is so convinced. Well, I think that Mr. Holmes is being a little quick in his conclusions, Watson says. But you are right. I know you are right. James never did it. This quarrel with his father, which he would not talk about with the coroner, do you know anything of it? I believe it was because I was concerned in it, she says. In what way? There's no time to hide anything now. James and his father had many disagreements about me. Mr. McCarthy was very anxious that there should be a marriage between us, but James and I have always loved each other like brother and sister. Of course, we haven't seen so much of each other lately. I've been away at boarding school for some years, and James has been studying in Liverpool.
This actress is clearly like 30.
He's only 22 and has seen very little of life. She doesn't know anything. Alice continues. And I suppose he does not wish to do anything like that just yet. So there were quarrels, and this, I'm sure, was one of them. How old are you, Miss Turner? Watson asks. I'm 18, quite nearly 19, or 30.
Or 30.
As you say, this isn't a time to hide anything. Are you in love with James McCarthy?
No.
You just said they were like brother and sister.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up again a little bit later.
Alice bows her head. Yes, I am, Mr. Holmes, very much in love. There is no one else, and there never will be, even if...
And what is your conception of love each other like brother and sister? What is your conception of sibling love?
Dude. Well, she's an only child. She might not know.
Please only have one child when you two get together.
And he with you, Watson says. I think so. I hope so. But how should I know for sure? We have never discussed marriage. Was your father in favor of such a union? Holmes asks. No, he was averse to it, she tells him. No one but Mr. McCarthy was in favor of it. Thank you, Holmes says, for being so frank with us. If I were to visit your father, could I see him, please? I'm afraid not, Alice says. The doctor has forbidden any visitors. I'm sorry, we did not know he was so ill, Watson says. My father has never been strong, Alice says, but this has broken him completely. He has taken to his bed, and Dr. Willow says that he's a wreck, and his nervous system is shattered. I can hardly leave him, or I would have been down at the railway station to meet you. You see, Mr. McCarthy is the only man alive who had known Dad in the old days in Australia.
Nervous system is shattered?
Yeah.
Let's just put a little pin in that. Might need a new doctor is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Australia, Holmes asks. In Victoria, at the mines, the gold mines, she says. That's where
the exploitation place.
Yes, the exploitation place. That's where Dad made all his money. You have been of material assistance to me, Holmes says. Will you be able to see James, she asks. Tomorrow, Holmes tells her. Tell him I know him to be innocent. I will, Holmes says. Could you give him this? And she hands Holmes a note, which he puts in his jacket pocket. And if you have any news, will you tell me? She grabs her hat. She stands up. I must go home now. I have left my father asleep, but if he wakes and I'm not there, he'll be upset.
I like her outfit, though. It looks comfortable. It's pretty, and it looks very comfortable.
Yes.
Which probably means they weren't using period appropriate fabric.
Well, it goes, I mean, remember gunny sacks from the 1970s?
Yeah.
And the 80s? It's kind of like in that vein.
Yeah.
So she shakes the men's hands, and God help you in your undertaking, she says, and she leaves. The next day, Holmes and Watson go to the prison, which has a sign on it calling it Rowton. There is no Rowton prison in real life. These scenes, I love this, were filmed at Peckforton Castle, built by Baron Tolmash in the mid-1800s in the style of a medieval castle. It stayed in the Tolmash family for a number of generations and then was bought by a rich American, Evelyn Graybill, in 1988, and then by the Naylor family, and they own a bunch of hotels and venues in England. In 2011, this is such a great story, shortly before a big wedding reception, there was a big fire at the castle that caused a lot of damage. Turns out the bridegroom had gotten drunk, 20 double vodkas, argued with the staff and owners about costs.
And then died of alcohol poisoning?
No, he set the fire, lit the curtains on fire in one of the rooms. And his defense was that he was under great personal strain and near bankruptcy. No, I'm amazed he didn't light himself on fire.
Yeah, should have filed for annulment.
Well, he got 6 years in prison. No word on whether or not his wife still loves him. He just disappeared. Anyway, Holmes and Watson and Somerby follow a guard to James's cell. Holmes turns to Somerby. May I see him alone? He asks. As you wish, but remember, this man is on remand, accused of murder, and a man under such circumstances is unlikely to speak the truth, Somerby says.
Fuck off.
Thank you for your good advice. Holmes turns and enters McCarthy's cell. McCarthy, startled, scoots back into a corner. James McCarthy, my name is Sherlock Holmes. I'm here to help you. How should I know that? James says. You came with the police inspector. I saw him out there. Holmes pulls Alice's note from his pocket and holds it out to James. I'm here at the request of Miss Turner. James takes the note. He opens it. He reads it and smiles, and then reaches out to shake Holmes's hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Holmes. Lately, I've learned to trust no one. I'm afraid you've come too late. They've already made up their minds that I'm guilty. Well, I have not. The coroner's court, the coroner and the coroner's jury only sit to inquire into the facts. They do not sit in judgment. Well, how can I help you? I'd like you to tell me exactly what happened, Holmes says. So a guard is kind of looming in the background, and Holmes suggests they sit in a part of the cell that where the guard can't really see or hear or lip read. James tells Holmes that he's been studying in Liverpool for the last 3 years. My father was anxious that I should have some academic qualifications. He returned home on June 3rd. Was your father expecting you? No, not exactly. He knew I was due for a few days' holiday, but not the exact day. So, in a flashback, we see James in a cart with a lot of luggage arriving at the farm. He's greeted by a young man named George, some kind of hired hand at the farm, who tells him that his father's not home. He left about 5 minutes ago. Looks as though he had something on his mind. So James tells George he'd like to have a gun brought to him so he can go shoot some rabbits before dinner.
Wouldn't hurt it fly.
James walks through the fern-covered forest with his rifle. He's got that, you know how like hunting rifles in the UK that they kind of fold over your forearm?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that's called. I looked it up and I got no satisfaction, but that's how he's walking. So the gun is not like about to be shot. It's in rest. He stoops to pick some pebbles up off the ground as he approaches the mirror where his father is pacing. Hello, Father, he says with a smile, pulling his arm back to skip a stone across the water's surface. James, what are you doing here? I'm just down for a few days, James says, his smile fading. Well, I don't want you down here, so get off out of it. Keep away. Do you understand? And William McCarthy seems absolutely furious to see James just then.
Yeah, he's also, the way he's kind of looking around, like he's clearly intending to meet someone there.
Yes. Yes, why? None of your damn business. Just do as you're told. James turns and starts,
really nice to see you too, Dad.
Yeah. He starts to walk away, but his father calls after him. James, look, now that you're out here, get over to the Turner place and tell that girl you'll marry her. I'll do no such thing. Look, Father, we've been through all this before. Do as I tell you, you damn disobedient little bastard. William,
it's fine. You can shoot him.
well, yeah. And William reaches for the gun. Give me the gun. And he yanks on it, but James yanks back. It's my life and I'm going to run it the way I like, James says. All right, damn you, I'll throw you out. I'll ruin you. You'll see. Get off out of it. And James leaves. Back in the cell, he tells Holmes, I had hardly gone any distance at all when I heard a terrible scream. I ran back down and found my father lying on his side. Did you see anyone else? Holmes asks. No. No movement anywhere? No. My intention was entirely on my father. He was terribly wounded. You would not tell the coroner about this quarrel with your father. It was something private. It was no business of his.
Yes, it was.
Was it not because this confrontation with your father might seem to incriminate you? Holmes asks. No, it was because it concerned Alice. It was no business of the coroner's or anyone else's, James says. I wasn't going to have her name bandied about in the courtroom. You do know that Alice loves you, James, and believes you to be innocent. And Holmes is being a little tender here. It's really kind of a sweet moment. Yes, I know, James says, and his voice starts to break. The thought of her love and her faith in me has kept me in some sort of sanity in this horrible place. And you did not wish to marry her, as your father so clearly wished, Holmes continues.
I just have oppositional defiance disorder.
Perhaps you did not share her love. I do, Mr. Holmes. I love Alice Turner. I adore her. I worship the very ground she treads on. And yet, I could not ask her to marry me because I was married already, James says.
Okay, that was a surprise.
Don't you think you better tell me about it, Holmes says. When I first started studying in Liverpool, my father gave me a very generous allowance. It was too generous for my own good, James says. And I'm like, but it sounds like the father hates the son. Why is he giving him so much money?
If I give you a bunch of money, will you stay away?
Possibly.
I don't know that the father hates the son so much as he's just kind of an asshole and doesn't express himself well.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I became very wild and fell in with a bad sort of people. In a bit of drunken madness, I went through a form of marriage in a register office to a woman.
Form of marriage?
Yes.
Like legal form? Or...
Well, if it was in a register office, it was legal. To a woman much older than I was, a barmaid. And Holmes looks kind of stunned. I hardly ever saw Alice at that time. Of course, I couldn't tell my father. He would certainly have thrown me out, as he is so often threatened. Yes, I'm sure he would, murmurs Holmes. Have you any idea who would have killed your father so brutally? None whatsoever, James says. Do you know, I go over the scene day after day after day in my mind, but I am as puzzled as everyone else is. Don't give up hope, Holmes says, and he turns to leave, but James stops him. Mr. Holmes, it hardly concerns all this business. Yes, it does. But perhaps I should tell you, some good has come out of this evil. Since I've been in here, I received a message from the woman I married, who has read in the newspapers that I am in serious trouble and likely to be hanged. She wrote that she has a husband already in a Bermuda dockyard. Good heavens, Holmes says.
Oh, good.
So there is no legal tie between us, James said. If only I had known before. You're right to tell me, Holmes says, and he leaves abruptly. Back in the hotel library, Holmes and Watson are in evening clothes. And no, Holmes is not wearing his deerstalker. But Watson is wearing a particularly lovely claret-colored velvet smoking jacket.
Yes.
I had a velvet blazer that color in high school in the 80s, and it was one of my favorite pieces of clothing ever. Poor fellow. It must have been maddening to be upbraided by his father for not doing something he would give his very eyes to do, Watson says, pouring a glass of whiskey for Holmes. If he's innocent, who did it? Indeed, Holmes says. Perhaps I can help. I have not been entirely idle in your absence. In the sergeant's deposition at the inquest, it states that the posterior third of the left parietal bone and the left half of the occipital bone were shattered by blows from a blunt weapon. Basically parts of the skull. Watson gesturing to the part of his own skull just above the left ear.
Towards the back of the head.
Yep. But the evidence states that they were quarreling face to face. That's a very nice piece of deduction, Watson, Holmes says. Thank you, Watson says smugly. Hardly a valid one.
Of course.
Yeah. McCarthy could have easily turned his back the moment the girl had run off, and it took me a minute to realize that Holmes was referring to the little girl who was the witness to the argument.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what girl? But I'm glad you're coming around to my way of thinking, and Miss Turner's. The boy is innocent. Now, Holmes, you're putting words into my mouth, Watson says. I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. Holmes is grinning and he's pointing with both hands, just a little. It is a cute moment. It really is. So I guess the next day, back at the farm, Holmes is examining a pair of boots as George, the hired hand, watches. Those boots were the ones the master was wearing at the time he was murdered, sir, George says. I've cleaned them up since, of course. What is this with the servants always cleaning up the evidence?
Oh no, a crime scene.
Holmes picks up another pair of boots and the camera angle widens and we see that Summerby and Watson are there as well. Those are a pair of Master James's, George says. He bought them new last Michaelmas, meaning late September. I have to look up all of these masses. Calendar, like Candlemas, Michaelmas. This is part of the Anglican calendar.
I just file it all under Christian stuff.
Yeah, yes. Well, it's if you are going to an Anglican school or one of the boarding schools, they still have terms or like holidays around these times.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so there's Michaelmas term, there's Candlemas term, there's anyway. Thank you, George. Now let us get onto the mere, Holmes says, and he's back in his deerstalker, but without the ulster coat this time, just a tweed jacket, so it must be warm out. Holmes leads the puzzled party to the scene of the crime, and Summerby.
It's a very pretty location.
It is, yes. Summerby points out that you can still see traces of the blood. We do not see these. Holmes shoos Summerby and Watson away as he examines the ground. Why did you enter the mere, Inspector? Holmes asks. Summerby turns to Watson in surprise at the question. Fished about with a rake, he tells Holmes. Thought there might be some weapons around there or some other trace. If only I had been here before they came like a herd of buffalo and wallowed all over it. Holmes gestures at the ground. This must be the gamekeeper and his gang. These tracks here are young McCarthy's, and these. Twice he walked. Holmes gets down on the ground and then gets back up again. He turns.
Because that's not smudging the scene at all.
Right. And he says he turned. Once he ran, so the soles of the feet are deeply marked. The heels are hardly visible. That would bear out the story. He ran when he saw his father on the ground. Summerby leans over to Watson, who's taking notes. He does the work, I'll say that, he says. The father paced up and down right here. And Holmes points to a plot on the ground. What have we here? Tiptoes. A deep imprint in the mud. Square toes. Most unusual boots. Where did Mr. Square Toes come from? And Holmes throws himself to the ground, fully prone. And
again,
crawls,
not at all messing up the scene.
Right. Crawling through the underbrush. Summerby says to Watson, he'd have made a rare bloodhound. And Watson. Holmes says, and he gets up, leaning on a tree, facing Watson and Summerby. It has been a case of considerable interest, he says. Come. And back at the farm, Holmes is tipping George generously from the look on George's face. Would you deliver this note? Yes, sir, indeed, right away, George says, and he runs off as the gentlemen climb into the police carriage and leave. This may interest you, Inspector, Holmes says, handing Summerby a large rock. The murder was done with it. I see no marks, Summerby says, turning it over in his hands. There are none, Holmes says. How do you know, then? Watson asks. The grass was growing under it, Holmes says. It had only been there a few days. It corresponds with the injuries. I'm like, well, but if you bash someone's head in with the rock, blood is going to be on the rock.
Yeah. Also, it wasn't that big a rock. Like, maybe somebody kicked it.
Yeah.
That's pretty specious reasoning.
Absolutely. And we're in for more. And the murderer? A tall man, left-handed, limps with the right leg, wears thick-soled shooting boots with square toes, smokes Indian cigars, uses a cigar holder, and carries a blunt penknife in his pocket. And the men all start laughing. You're a brilliant man, Mr. Holmes, Summerby says, and I wish I had your brains. Your theories are all very well, but I'm still not convinced. Not this time. We'll have to deal with a hard-headed British jury. Well, you've had your chance, Inspector, Holmes says. I'm a practical man, Mr. Holmes. I cannot undertake to go around the country looking for a left-handed gentleman with a gammy leg. I should become the laughingstock of Cheshire.
I mean, there's Mr. Turner, but like he's an outlier.
We shall see, Holmes says. You work your methods, I shall work mine. At the hotel, Holmes and Watson are having tea with a little wine and cheese. Now, Holmes says, let us take this morning's work. From my examination of the ground, I gained details as to the personality of the criminal. But how, Watson says, tossing back his wine. You know my methods, because it's tea time. You got to have wine. It is found upon the observance of trifles. His height you might judge from the length of his stride, Watson says, his boots by his traces. But the man's lameness, the impression of his right foot was always less distinct than that of his left. Why?
Yeah, I feel like that one was pretty obvious.
Yeah, exactly. His left-handedness, the blow was delivered immediately from behind him, and yet it was on the left-hand side. Watson. Holmes cuts him off, and he's gesturing to the back of his own head. He must have been a left-handed man. Yes, of course, Watson says. He stood behind that tree, Holmes says, during the confrontation between father and son. He even smoked there. Holmes pulls out an envelope from his coat pocket and opens it. Cigar ash, and the ash falls out of the envelope onto Holmes's napkin. An Indian.
If he had turned and was hit, like, wouldn't it really depend on which direction he turned in?
Yes, of course it would.
So it doesn't mean the killer was left-handed.
No, it doesn't. But this is Conan Doyle. You got to take everything he says on faith, because that's all he's got.
He's like, it's really hard to keep coming up with this stuff.
So, Holmes says, an Indian cigar. You will remember my little monograph on the subject of ashes from pipe, cigar, and cigarette tobacco. 100 different varieties. I remember, Watson says. 140. Thank you, Watson. Holmes. Having discovered the ash, I discovered this stump, which the man had thrown among the moss. And he pulls out the stub of a cigar from another pocket. An Indian cigar rolled in Rotterdam. And he hands it to Watson, saying, you will notice that the end has not been in his mouth. Watson smells the cigar stub. So he used a cigar holder, and the tip has been cut off, not bitten. But the cut is not a clean one, so I deduced a blunt penknife. And Watson's laughing. Amazing, he says, and he tosses the stub onto the table. Among the words mumbled by the dying man, the only word young McCarthy could understand was the word rat.
It stands for Drat. I've been attacked.
Rat, Watson repeats, pouring himself another glass. Most curious. Holmes gets up, holding the napkin full of ashes. Come with me. And they go back into the hotel library. He picks up a folded piece of paper. Will you read? A rat, Watson says. And Holmes unfolds the paper. On the other half is written B-A-L-L. Ball a rat. Ball a rat. That is
pretty clever.
Sorry?
Pretty clever, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
Well, they're both Australians, you know, those colonials.
Honestly, sometimes Holmes needs a parachute for the jumps to the conclusion. That is the word the man uttered, Holmes says. Australia, Watson says. Ballarat is a city in the south of Australia, near Melbourne. Someone from Ballarat. What is Ballarat known for? There's gold fields, Watson says. Miss Turner said McCarthy had met her father on the gold fields. I see the direction where all this points. An Australian from Ballarat, one who is at home in the district, Holmes says. And there's a bang from downstairs. Holmes looks toward the door. Unless I'm very much mistaken, he's here. And the hotel proprietor leans in the doorway and says, Mr. John Turner. John Turner comes into the room, limping a little. He is played by Peter Vaughan, who was old even back in 1991. He was born in 1923.
Wow.
More modern viewers might know him as Aemon Targaryen, the Maester of the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones. He was in his 90s by that point.
Wow.
And he died in 2016, which I think was, no, like Game of Thrones ended like 2 years later. John Turner marches right up into Holmes's face. He greets both men and then says, "My daughter told me you were lodging here," and he's got an Australian accent.
Yes.
"Did you get my note?" Holmes asks. "Yes, something about coming here to avoid a scandal," Turner says. "Better than meeting up at the hall," Holmes says. "People might talk." "Why do you wish to see me?" And Holmes lets a couple of beats go by in silence, staring at Turner, and Turner...
Yes, the camera's really close on Holmes and really close on Turner. Like, "I will hypnotize you with my Jedi mind powers."
What?
Why are we doing this?
Well, and also, if his health is so frail and his nerves are so shattered, why is he walking around, getting in a carriage, going to a hotel, like doing all of that?
It's terrible.
"Oh, yes," Holmes says finally. "I know about you and McCarthy. My friend Watson wrote down a few facts. I promise they'll not be used unless absolutely needed. Do sit down." So Turner removes his hat and sits in an armchair. Holmes sits in another chair across from him. Watson's on the sofa, writing down what turns out to be Turner's confession. "You didn't know the dead man, McCarthy," Turner says. "He was the devil incarnate. God keep you out of the clutches of such a man such as he. His grip had been upon me these many years, and he's blasted my life." He turns to Watson, who's continuing to take notes. "I'll tell you first how I came to be in his power. It was in the early 60s at the diggings. I was a young chap then, hot-blooded and reckless. Well, I had no luck with me claims, so I took to the bush and became what you call a highway robber."
Here's why I was justified in killing him. "You see, I used to be part of a gang of criminals."
I mean, yes. Yes. Fruit of the poison tree. So we flash back to a group of young men on horses as Turner continues narrating. This scene is meant, of course, to take place in Australia. It was filmed in a local quarry near a town called Bolton, just outside of Manchester, because they were not going to go like they did
to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. "There was a little gang of us, lived a wild, free life of it, sticking up a station from time to time or stopping a wagon on the road from the diggings. They called me Blackjack of Ballarat. I believe they still remember the Ballarat gang in the colony."
I'm very proud of this. Also, I was totally justified in killing McCarthy.
I mean, I was like, this is kind of like the sign of 4, right? Men getting up to no good in far off lands.
Yep.
The gang ambushes a wagon with a lot of shooting. "The wagon driver was McCarthy, and I spared him," Turner says. And in the scene, in the flashback, he's yelling at McCarthy to run away. Turner kills another man and goes to the wagon, opening a wooden chest inside. He shoots it open. And it's filled with what I thought was gravel, but turns out it's gold.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like, they needed to paint those a little more yellow or something.
Vividly, yes.
Because he was sifting through the rocks, and I'm like, is he disappointed that for some reason they were just carrying random rocks around?
Gravel from the quarry.
Oh, look, and gold dust. And he opens the packet, and it's just like this brown dust.
But supposedly it is gold. "My maid and I were wealthy beyond the dreams of avarice." And Turner's growing distraught as he's telling his tale, and Watson hands him a glass of water for a change.
He doesn't deserve brandy.
"There was a price on our heads. I decided to make for England. I determined to settle down to a quiet and respectable life. I bought this estate. It included the whole village. Even this inn is mine. I set myself to do a little good with my money to make up for the way in which I'd earned it. I married, and then my darling wife died young, and she left me my dear little Alice."
The closed caption said "dead little Alice."
Oh, God. That's a good note, though. Throughout this whole episode, the closed captions were bullshit.
That was the only one that I noticed.
Oh, there's so many mistakes. "I was a happy man, you might say, until McCarthy laid his grip upon me. He followed my trail. When he first came here, he had hardly a coat to his back or a boot to his foot. 'Here we are, Jack,' he said. 'You can have the keeping of us, me and my little boy, and if you don't, England's a fine, law-abiding country, and there's always a policeman handy.' I was a sitting duck for blackmail. There was no shaking him off."
To fucking prove it. Like, what was he gonna do? Google you?
Yes. "There was no rest, no peace, no forgetfulness. Turned without a word. There was his cunning, grinning face at me elbow. Whatever he wanted, he must have. And whatever it was I gave him without question. Land, money, houses. But at last he asked for a thing I could not give. He asked for Alice. And Holmes looks as if finally Turner has come to the point. His son and my daughter had grown up. He knew I was in weak health. Seemed a fine stroke to him that his son should step into the whole property, and there I was firm. I would not have his cursed stock mixed with mine. Not that I had any dislike for the lad, but his father's blood was in him, and that was enough. I stood firm. McCarthy threatened. I braved him to do his worst. And in another flashback, we see Turner striding through the woods, his cigar in a holder clenched between his teeth. We arranged to meet at the mirror halfway between our two houses to talk it over. And Turner in the woods observes Father McCarthy and son having their argument. As I listened to his talk, all that was black and bitter seemed to come uppermost. He was urging his son to marry my daughter with as little regard for what she might think as a slut from off the streets. And again, none of these men will ever actually talk to a woman.
Yeah.
Turner is making his own assumptions with his own lack of regard for what Alice wants, because Alice wants like crazy to marry James.
Yeah. Yep.
It drove me mad to think that I and all that I held dear should be in the power of such a man. I was a dying and desperate man. If I could silence that foul tongue, I could still save me and my family's reputation in this valley. So, in the flashback, James McCarthy walks away. Turner picks up the rock and clubs McCarthy over the head with it, and then disappears into the woods.
But the budget clearly did not extend to actually showing the beating.
No. I did it, Mr. Holmes, and I would do it again. Deeply though I have sinned, I have lived a life of martyrdom to atone for it. Excuse me?
You were blackmailed because of crimes you'd committed.
I'm like, never does he list off the things that he does for, the estate, the village, what martyrdom?
You should give me a medal for not committing crimes in England.
The entitlement, again. That my girls should become entangled in the same messes which held me was more than I could suffer. I struck him down with no more compunction than if he'd been some foul and venomous beast. That is the true story, gentlemen, all that occurred. And Turner takes another swig of water. It is not for me to judge you, Holmes says, but I hope that we may never be exposed to such a temptation. Boys will be boys, okay?
It's not for me to judge it. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I pray not, sir. I'm a dying man. I've had the diabetes for years. My father says it's a question of whether I shall live a month, and I'd rather die under my own roof than in a jail. Well, you committed a fucking crime.
Mm-hmm.
James McCarthy must be got off, however, Holmes says. God help me, but I wouldn't let that young man come to harm, Turner says. I give him my word that I'd have spoken out if it went against him at the assizes. I'm very glad to hear you say so, Holmes says. I'd have spoken now. Had it not been for my dear girl, it would break her heart. It would break her heart when she hears that I'm arrested. It may not come to that, Holmes says.
Okay, but wouldn't that reason also apply at the assizes?
Right.
I don't really trust this man.
Turner is looking at Holmes like, what are you talking about? We are not the police, Holmes says. I am no official agent. I am here at your daughter's request. Alice, what do you intend to do? Turner asks. In view of your health, nothing. You are yourself aware that you will have to answer for your deed at a higher court than the assizes. If young McCarthy's condemned, I shall be forced to use this confession. If not, it will never be seen by mortal eye, and your secret, whether you be alive or dead, shall be safe with us.
Until Watson publishes it.
Yes. Watson hands Turner a pen, and Turner signs the confession. Turner and Holmes have another stare down, and then Turner gets up.
Farewell. Yeah, I'm really on board with this.
Yeah, I'm not either. Farewell, then, he says, putting on his hat. Your own deathbeds, when they come, will be the easier for the thought of the peace that you've given to mine. He shakes their hands and then leaves the room. And Holmes looks up at the ceiling and sighs. God help us, he says.
Yeah.
No, I don't feel sorry for anybody except James McCarthy.
Yes.
But oh, in the next scene, Watson in 221B is reading an obituary in the newspaper. Turner, John Stewart, 16th of August, Boscombe Hall, Cheshire, after long illness, bravely born, beloved father of Alice. Watson stands up, goes to the fireplace, holding a cup of tea. Now we are free to use that confession at young McCarthy's trial. By no means, Holmes says. My promise was that it would not be used unless McCarthy was condemned, and I think I've given enough objections to the charge to ensure his acquittal. I hope so, Watson says, sipping his tea. At the assizes, James is ushered out, a free man, into a carriage.
While the crowd applauds.
Yes, while the crowd applauds. Holmes and Watson follow him into the carriage. Summerby is watching. And at the estate, James gets out of the carriage and sees Alice. They embrace happily. She's wearing another Gunny Sacks dress.
I know. It also looks comfortable. Also, it's white, and she was like over by the roses or peonies or whatever they were. I'm like, that's not really practical for gardening.
No. And James says, I love you. And Alice says, I love you too. Will you marry me? Yes, I will.
They rushed towards each other, and all I could think was like the head bonking.
Yes. Back at 221B, Holmes is burning Turner's confession. A happy ending to a brilliant case, Watson says. I congratulate you, Holmes. I thank you. I must admit there were certain aspects to this case which even I did not anticipate. And Holmes watches the confession burning. Meanwhile, James and Alice are walking through the gardens hand in hand at Boscombe Hall.
Next to the tallest shrubbery I have ever. And it's perfectly manicured and shaped, but it's like 3 times their height. Like, how do you even trim shrubbery?
Well, back then, no idea. Now, use a cherry picker.
Yeah. Like back then, what did you do?
No idea. So my question at this point was, will James tell Alice about the woman he thought he'd married?
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. Because women don't deserve to know anything.
Exactly.
About what men get
Probably don't have an STD.
I mean, oh my God. This episode, I get that Holmes hates a blackmailer more than almost anything else. This is not the first victim of blackmail he's let off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And do we ever get to Charles Augustus Milverton in this series?
It might be the next series.
Okay. Yeah.
We do get to it.
Okay. I'm forgetting. But yeah, that's oh wait, no, I do remember. We were talking about the last week. That's the one where Holmes has to get romantic.
Yeah.
But yeah, Holmes does hate a blackmailer more than anything, but I just hate that he's letting murderers go.
Yeah.
Murder is worse than blackmail.
Yeah.
On the scale of crimes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, anyway. Yeah,
I don't approve of that one.
No, I don't either. And it's typical, Doyle, like what the men do is right. Period.
What do you expect from these colonials anyway?
Right. Yep. Yeah, and when you talk about gold fields as opposed to gold mines, I'm like, what? I didn't even look that up, but but it's just growing in fields.
That's how gold occurs in Australia.
Ah, yes, it's ripened on the vine. God. Well, any other thoughts on this episode? I love all the architecture.
Yeah.
Architecture is so great. And I need to get up there at some point, but and I do want to see that castle.
Yeah.
Where the fire was. It cost $6 million worth of damage.
I hope they took it out of that guy's paychecks.
He was in jail for 6 years, so it was $1 million
a year. I guess that's one way to calculate. That's all from us this week. If you've enjoyed the show and haven't subscribed yet, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to support us, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends. And join us next week when we'll be discussing The Illustrious Client.
Illustrious Client. Cool. All right. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.